everybody. Welcome to Scott Fox After 9. It is going to be a shorter episode of the pod today. I'm giving you a heads up because I have some personal stuff that I got to take care of, but that's okay. That's okay. By personal stuff, I mean wallowing over the Leafs' loss last night.
Oh, me too.
Anna Almeida joins the pod. Anna, you watched the game last night.
I gave up after the fourth goal that they let in, and you can't blame it all on the goalie. They all played like crap.
They all did. All of them.
It was terrible.
Anna, you know what? Before we get into the content, and this episode is going to have some of the new cabinet ministers. It's going to have Premier Doug Ford, and we're going to talk about the hockey player trial in London, and we're going to talk about the Diddy trial in New York. Those are the things coming up on the pod. Before that, though, I might be done. I think I'm done with the Leafs. I'll tell you what I mean by that. They were so bad last night. Just awful. In a game that meant a lot. Somebody pointed out last night's game, Austin Matthews made $161,000 to play in that game.
To lose that bad. Isn't that horrible?
You know, and I mean, all the guys are making similar money. And they just didn't even show up last night. And it's so discouraging and so frustrating that this team just can't find a way to win. So last year, when we had our unfortunate exit from the playoffs, I said it then too. Every year I do this to myself. I get excited and then they let me down. So maybe it's time to switch to a different team. Now, in the end, I didn't do that. I could not see myself becoming a Boston Bruins fan or a Buffalo Sabres fan or a Florida Panthers fan. I just couldn't do it. So I thought maybe I'm going to give up on hockey. I didn't watch many regular season games this year, and that's rare for me because I usually watch every game. They pissed me off with putting those games on Amazon because I don't want to watch a game in two different places. I just want to watch the Leafs. So I stopped watching this season. When the playoffs came around, I thought, okay, I'll give it a shot. Let's go. And then this happens.
I know, but
I think I might be done. Like, I might have to just give up on hockey altogether and just go full-time NFL and NBA.
I could see that, but honestly, it's because this year, making it to the second round, we were up. You know, we almost got a 3-game winning streak, if not for that one goal, right, at the very end. So this is just tragic to know that we could have almost potentially swept, and now we're at the bottom, and to lose as badly as we did. I mean, I didn't even care that they got a goal in yesterday. To me, it didn't even matter. It did not matter, you know.
It was embarrassing.
Yeah.
And then, as the Leafs are just stinking it up on the ice, fans leaving, the arena was half empty in the third period. They were throwing jerseys on the ice. I don't know. By the way, no matter how angry I got, I would not throw a $200 jersey away.
No
I'm
doubt.
just not throwing it away.
No, I wouldn't do it either. I couldn't even do the hats. But, yeah, and then people were booing. Oh, my gosh.
Nightmare scenario for the Leafs.
Terrible.
Well, as they were just stinking it up on the ice in Toronto, well, Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers got the job done last night in Las Vegas. Now, Connor McDavid, despite punching his ticket to the Western Conference Final last night, was not very happy. Listen to this question and his response from a reporter.
There's been a natural progression over the last couple of years even. Have you seen that, the way that you guys defend and feel more comfortable defending as a group?
I mean, how many times are we going to answer this question, really? Like, honestly. That's frustrating that we keep talking about this. We can defend. We can. You know, we've showed that time and time again. You know, come into a tough building and win a 1-0 game when it matters most. We can play that way. We can score goals. We can, whatever it takes, we can win games. Yeah.
Do you?
It's never a good start when the person you're interviewing goes, you know, abort mission. Like, just go. It's never a good sign.
No, I agree with you. That was Connor McDavid. Hey, you know what? I don't know what's going to happen with the Leafs. It's not over. They could win tomorrow night, Friday, and then win again on Sunday in Florida, and they would advance to the Eastern Conference Final. Doesn't feel like they're going to do it based on the effort last night. Unless what they needed was to hear their own fans boo them out of their own building.
Oh my gosh, so bad.
Maybe that lights a little fire under them. I don't know if it will or not, but I'll tell you, if the Leafs dip in the second round again, I'm out. For the rest of this season, I will proudly be cheering on the Edmonton Oilers to win the Stanley Cup. No offense, Winnipeg Jets fans, but you're down 3-1. So I will cheer for the Oilers for this season. And then I think I'm just done with the NHL. I'm just done with it.
And just on that note, imagine the people who spent $5,000 per ticket to go to the game last night to see that happen.
What a waste.
What a waste of money. Oof.
Anna, gas went up another cent overnight.
Of course it did.
For no good reason. $1.38.9 today. The Canadian dollar traded overseas this morning at 71.53 cents US. On the calendar today is National Chocolate Chip Day, National Slider Day, if you like small hamburgers, and National Nylon Stocking Day.
Oh. I hate nylons.
What?
I hate them. They're horrible. They just bring me back to my childhood. And my mom used to make me and they wear them and they're itchy. Gross. I can't do it. I'm telling you.
See, some women hate them,
I
like
hate
yourself.
them.
Other women love them.
Yeah, I'm not them.
Okay, fair.
I'm not them.
Okay, fair. What else can we tell you? The Jays are playing an afternoon game today. It's a work from dome game. I like that. And I think that's all the stuff we have to cover there. Ooh, one more, actually. I want to get this on the radar because I want to try and save people some money. The head of Loblaw says the company expects a surge of tariff-related price increases in their stores as the pre-tariff inventory begins to run out. First off, I'm going to call complete and total BS on that. It's been, 6-8 weeks now with
It's
tariffs?
been a little bit.
How long has that inventory been there?
Yeah, I
you
didn't
mean
even
to tell
know.
me that nothing got affected so far because it was all pre-tariff inventory?
Yeah, no, that surprised me. And how about buy local, support Canada, Canadian products? Now it's like this fear being dropped on us.
It's frustrating. Chief Executive Per Bank says that while the tariff situation might be improving between the U.S. and other countries, that is not the case in Canada. Bank says consumers are going to be facing a large wave of tariff-related increases in the weeks ahead, with a tally that so far has been limited to a little over 1,000 items. Per Bank here says the total will rise to more than 3,000 items within the next week or two, and could peak at over 6,000 items over the next 2 months. In other words, you got to do a grocery shop, everybody, because prices are going up.
Yeah. And I just think on things that aren't supposed to go up, but they're just, jumping on this bandwagon and they're going to go up. That's just the way it is.
Anna, yesterday, Prime Minister Carney held his first cabinet meeting, and the cabinet ministers like to stop and talk to the reporters outside the cabinet room. We heard from a number of the newly sworn-in cabinet ministers yesterday, and frankly, I think yesterday is a day that Prime Minister Carney would like to have back.
Yeah.
If he had known in advance what his ministers were going to do, I don't think he would have allowed it because, I'll say it, I don't really have a problem with much of what Mark Carney has done so far. So far, he's been fairly innocuous as a prime minister. He at least seems to be doing the job. I'm not going to for a second pretend he's not working hard. He seems to be doing just that. So I don't really have any criticism of Prime Minister Carney so far. I will say, though, that these new ministers that he's put in charge seem to be running roughshod already. Let's start off with our finance minister, François-Philippe Champagne. This is him talking yesterday to reporters.
The Canadian government priority, and there will be a fall economic statement to follow. So those are really the sequence that you're going to see. Tax cut for the middle class, we're going to be introducing ways and mean motions as we enter back into Parliament. We'll table legislation. Then there'll be a throne speech, and then we'll present a fall economic.
Reporters are getting pretty concerned here.
Yeah.
What do you mean no budget?
Right?
We didn't have a budget last year, and they didn't read the fall financial statement because Chrystia Freeland quit.
Yeah.
What do you mean no budget? How can we have no budget?
Wow.
Here's a little bit more of the follow-up there.
You're going to work with opposition parties to get this passed. How are you going to get the votes to get this passed? Are you going to reach out to opposition parties and see if they'll...
Well, Canadians sent a very clear message that they want this Parliament to work for them. And the first measure that we're introducing is a middle class tax cut. So we expect other parliamentarians to support, obviously, the government, because this is about Canadians. We are...
I'm going to cut him off there because I don't think anybody disagrees with that. We did vote for tax cuts, whether you voted conservative or liberal. The conservative tax cut was bigger, but the liberals won. We still at least want that tax cut, so I don't have a problem with that. But I do have a problem with us not having a budget.
Yeah.
How can we not have a budget?
And he's just talking like he hopes. He hopes the others follow suit. Well, I hope for a lot of things too, my friend. So we'll see what happens.
Let's do one more.
Okay.
This is François-Philippe Champagne. After announcing there will be no budget this year, this is him on the CBC.
So for me, it's about transparency with Canadians. I want to be straight with Canadians and give them the best possible picture that I can. And that's why I say Canadians understand there's kind of a logical order. You provide the tax cut, you have the throne speech, you have a fall economic update, which is going to be substantive.
So why
we've
why
seen
though,
that in the past.
Why is the logical order to reduce government revenues by cutting the taxes before you update the country on the state of the government?
Well, because that's the flagship promise that the Prime Minister has made, and we have delivered on it. Today, he's been instructing us. You've seen him sign the order, and then we're going to have a Ways and Means motion as soon as we get back in Parliament. We're going to table legislation, and that matters to Canadians because you're talking about 22 million people who are going to benefit.
We're talking about trillions of dollars. How can you not have a budget?
Yeah.
Anna, this is crazy. That's not even democratic.
That's wild.
That's one of the basic functions of the government is to present our finances to the people.
But it's just how freely he's just saying all this.
Like just casually blew it
Very
off. No budget.
you know? Like, what do you mean?
How can we have no budget?
And we're in a crisis.
We have, they say we're in a crisis. It doesn't feel like a crisis.
Like, it's just funny.
Like if Loblaw would piss off, I don't know that we would even notice we're in a tariff war.
No, because it's just been this way for a while now. I've just come to accept what it is.
Well, that was day one out of the new Carney cabinet. No budget.
No budget.
What else could go wrong? Oh, let's bring in Greg Robertson, the new housing minister. He was asked an interesting question yesterday. Listen to this.
Affordable housing.
Do you think home prices need to go down?
No, I think that we need to deliver more supply, make sure the market is stable. It's a huge part of our economy. We need to be delivering more affordable housing. The government of Canada.
Very loud there outside the cabinet room. Maybe you didn't hear what he said. So let me play that one more time. The question was, do you think housing prices need to go down? Again, this is a question for the new housing minister.
Yeah.
Affordable housing.
Do you think home prices need to go down?
No, I think that we need to deliver more supply, make sure the market is stable. It's a huge part of our economy.
You can't buy the houses that are on the market right now because we don't make enough. So how...
Okay, so I've seen no shortage of people, namely conservatives, who are criticizing that comment saying, how can the new housing minister, the guy who was the mayor of Vancouver when Vancouver's housing market exploded, how can he possibly say, no, we don't want housing prices to go down? I think, and I don't want to put words in Greg's mouth here, but I think I get what he's saying.
Oh, please break it down for me because I'm confused.
There are homeowners out there that have gained a lot of equity in their home because the price of houses has gone crazy. And if right now their house is worth $1 million, whereas it used to be worth $700,000, they're up $300,000. If housing prices come down, they lose that $300,000 unless they sell. Regular folks don't want their home to go down in value, but we do have a problem here in that there's many others that would like to enter the housing market.
Yes.
So what Greg here is saying, if I may, is he's suggesting that we just need to build more affordable homes and leave the existing homes as is, hope that they don't go down in value, just build enough affordable homes for people who want it. These are the modular homes, the shacks, that sort of stuff that the government swore they were going to build 500,000 a year of.
This is just such a fantasy world.
It is a fantasy. Like,
to be honest.
So that's strike two.
That's.
Let's now hear from the former Foreign Affairs Minister, now in charge of, I believe it's domestic trade, Melanie Joly.
Pleasure to be here. First and foremost, I'm happy to be the new industry minister. I had the chance this morning to talk with Vic Fideli from Ontario already and to talk about the Honda issue. Our goal is definitely to make sure that we're in solution mode. My goal is before the end of the day to be able to talk to the head of Honda. We know that we're in a trade war with the U.S. We know there's a lot of uncertainty coming out and unpredictability coming out from the White House. My goal, and that's why I wanted to become the new Minister of the Industry, it is to make sure that notwithstanding all the shenanigans coming out of the White House, we can create economic certainty here in the country.
How?
I don't know. Anna, I don't get it.
How?
You know, this is another minister, very similar to Chrystia Freeland, who is very polarizing and that the Americans do not like. That's part of the reason I think that Mark Carney moved her out of the foreign affairs portfolio is so she doesn't have to deal with the Americans because she can't shut her mouth.
Yeah.
One of the major irritants that the Americans have flagged here, the reason it got as bad as it did was two reasons. Number one, Justin Trudeau. Trump hated Justin Trudeau. Number 2 is the rhetoric coming out of Canada. There was a lot of people that asked for our vote so they could fight Donald Trump. And they said some nasty things about Trump. Trump heard about it and he doesn't like it. He's not going to like that either. Shenanigans from the Americans. I don't think the Americans see it that way. And I'm not defending the Americans. I simply understand what they're doing.
But there was no real answer there either.
No, there wasn't really an answer there. So now we've had the industry minister, Melanie Joly. We have had the housing minister, who says housing prices should not go down. We've had the finance minister who says we're not going to get a budget. Now let's hear from the new Minister of Foreign Affairs, Anita Anand, talking about Israel and Hamas.
Israel's blocking food and aid to Gaza. What do you think of that decision? And is the Canadian government doing anything to stop that?
We cannot allow the continued use of food as a political tool. The Prime Minister has been very clear about that. Over 50,000 people have died as a result of the aggression caused against the Palestinian and the Gazan people in Palestine. And using food as a political tool is simply unacceptable. And we need to continue to work towards a ceasefire. We need to ensure that we have a two-state solution, and Canada will continue to maintain that.
How? Again, how?
You know, most people would point out that Hamas started this. October 7th was Hamas.
It was scary.
Israel didn't go into Gaza. Hamas went into Israel. They murdered, tortured, and raped people. They've still got hostages that they refuse to release, and they still refuse to lay down their arms. I don't know why Anita Anand is getting involved in this. Stay out of it, Anita. I don't understand that position at all, but as far as I knew, we were pro-Israel in this country. That's what I was led to believe, and Mark Carney certainly gave indications on the campaign trail that that's the way it was. One more.
Okay.
Now we're 0 for 4 here, Anna, so far. One more. The former environment minister, now Canada's new Canadian identity minister, Stephen Guilbeault, talking yesterday about pipelines. Not his portfolio anymore, but he was talking about them anyway.
Prime Minister last night on TV seemed to open the door to potentially changing the emissions cap or the IAA to get projects built. What do you think of what he said?
Well, these are important conversations that we will need to have in the coming weeks.
Premier Smith is saying that you're anti-pipeline still. What do you say in response to her concerns just broadly about the cabinet? And how do you deal with national unity? How do you address that right now?
So on pipelines, people should remember that we bought a pipeline, Trans Mountain, and that is only used right now about 40% capacity. So I think before we start talking about building an entire new pipeline, maybe we should maximize the use of existing infrastructure. And the Canadian Energy Regulator, as well as the International Energy Agency, are telling us that probably by 2028, 2029, demand for oil will peak globally, and it will also peak in Canada. So as far as I know, there are no investors right now. There are no companies that are saying that they want to build an east-west pipeline. And
the reason that there's nobody willing to build an east-west pipeline is because we've made it so impossible to do. There's an actual law, Bill C-69, that prevents new pipelines. So nobody's going to step up and say, I want to break the law and build a pipeline. This guy is bananas. Anna, I really can't figure it out. Carney had a fresh slate. He convinced Canadians that he was different. And he had a real opportunity here to ditch the dead weight from Justin Trudeau's cabinet, and he brought them all back. Not the ones who were working, I mean the polarizing ones. The Guilbeaults, the Jolys, the Anands, the Freelands, the Francois-Philippe Champagnes. Why would he bring them back?
And to move them around, too.
We're 0 for 5 here, Anna, on day one. Oof. And again, I don't think Prime Minister Carney is going to be too happy with the performance of his ministers. I don't even know if he agrees with his ministers, but for Guilbeault to say, we estimate that in 2 years, global demand for oil is going to peak. Get the hell out of here. We're not going net zero. We're not going green, Steve. The dream is over. The grift is done. We're not going green. Drill, baby, drill. And he will not accept that. That's a guy sitting at the cabinet table that has the prime minister's ear.
And it's just wild. He was not expecting the questions that he got. He wasn't prepared. You could hear that he was trying to pivot and how am I going to handle this situation right now? It's all these discussions. How come you haven't had these discussions before you go out and have these discussions with reporters so we can have some answers?
No kidding. Okay, so again, we are going to keep this episode fairly short. I do want to talk about the trial of the World Junior Hockey players and about Diddy and give you an update there, because this should be a reliable place that you can come to every day and get the latest. Before I do, yesterday, Ontario Premier Doug Ford did another news conference. He talked about two things that we are very interested in. The first one was parking at hospitals. You may have heard, Nova Scotia. They took away the parking fees at hospitals. It's wrong that somebody who's going for chemo gets jammed with a $15 a day bill. It's wrong that doctors and nurses have to pay that kind of money every day to park at work. It's wrong.
It is wrong.
That's why Nova Scotia fixed it. Could we fix it in Ontario? Here's Premier Ford.
There's been a push on by the opposition here, but one that's also backed by groups like the Canadian Cancer Society, and that's to do what Premier Houston recently did in his province and eliminate hospital parking fees for those, going for treatment or for frontline healthcare workers. I know you're all about affordability measures. I'm wondering, would you consider that one?
Well, I've come up with this a few times, Richard, and I got to be honest, a little kickback from some of the hospitals. That's a big money generator, but it really...
Hold on, you get a kickback from the hospitals, or do you get pushback from the hospitals? Because that's two different things. Pushback is resistance. Kickback is a brown envelope full of cash. So maybe that was a bad choice of words there for the Premier, but here's the rest of his answer.
It bothers me that, nurses, and they're phenomenal. They have to go there and they have to pay for their parking, which is unfortunate. But I'll never give up on that aspect. And Halifax is a little over 1 million people versus 16 million. There's a big difference. But I've asked the hospitals. I did. They gave me a little kickback. Not the docs. They get obviously a lot more than nurses. But as the frontline healthcare workers, PSWs, nurses, healthcare workers that. Yeah, I feel sorry for. So we got to keep working on that, come up with a different plan. But I've been all over this for months, actually.
Oh.
He's been all over it for months.
Hadn't heard.
I hadn't heard a word about it.
He feels bad for them, though.
I get that. I bet he does. I bet he does. Listen, this doesn't need to be complicated. I was listening to a little bit of talk radio in Toronto yesterday, and talk radio in Toronto has really gone downhill, Anna. I got to tell you. So I'm listening to it yesterday, and they're talking about the parking thing, and I heard caller after caller. Well, if you make it free, people are going to park at the hospital and go elsewhere. Okay, is that really the biggest roadblock? Because if it is, a simple solution. You have to get a ticket from the machine when you go in, just like you normally would. When you go out, you've got to put the ticket in and pay the rate. How about if you go into the hospital, they give you one that just gets you out?
Be amazing.
When I go to hospitals for meetings about their fundraising initiatives, they always validate my parking. It would be very easy to do that for people having chemo treatment, for people that are caregivers, for PSWs, for nurses, for doctors. This is a solvable problem. The problem here is it seems like these hospitals are addicted to that revenue. Again, hospitals should not have to worry about this. We have a funded system by the public. Give them more money. How much does it really cost them if they get rid of the parking fees? Make it up to them. Give it back to them. And maybe not. Maybe tell those hospital CEOs that are greedy and want to keep jamming patients for parking, maybe tell them to figure out how to do more with less, like so many other businesses are doing right now. That's just my thought on it.
No, but I'm with you on that because having lived in Halifax, I felt very proud that they did that for the hospitals. And having been someone as a caretaker taking my dad 5 days a week for over a month for his treatment when he was diagnosed with cancer, it adds up.
$75 a week, $150 every 2 weeks, $300 a month. It's insanity. The Premier also said, it's a little different between 1 million people in Halifax and here we have 16 million. That's not apples to apples.
No.
Halifax, as a regional municipality, has about 1 million people. Halifax is not the entire province of Nova Scotia. If you want to compare apples to apples, it's about 1 million plus for Halifax and about 4 million for Toronto. But we also have a lot more hospitals in Toronto than Halifax has. So that's not a fair comparison. There is one more question, though, that I want to play the answer for you from. It's Premier Ford now talking about the 407. Richard Southern, 680 News. asking a good question. Nice work, Rich.
On another note, you announced yesterday the elimination of tolls on the provincially owned portion of the 407. A couple of months ago, you said you were open to maybe buying back the full 407 from private hands and that you would talk to the ownership about it. Have you had that discussion, and where does that stand, Premier?
Well, the public service kind of goes back and forth, or Ministry of Transportation. But, you know, without throwing numbers, we should have never sold the 407,
right.
first of all. And it's in the tens of billions of dollars. But they're going to be at capacity in 10 years. And I'd never rule out acquiring it. But we also have to build capacity, and that's why we're doing that feasibility study to build that tunnel. And we will build it. You know, I remember, I don't know, 6 years ago when we came out with the transit plan. And if I could roll back the time and say, 6 years ago, we're going to do the largest transit expansion in North America. We're going to build 5 lines, and we're going to build the Hazel-McCallion line and other lines. We're going to spend over $70 billion. The opposition would say, oh, that's back of a napkin. Well, so much for back of a napkin. We're actually doing it, getting it done. And I believe you have to be a visionary. You can't think about 5 or 10 years. You have to think about 50 years down the road.
What you need to think about is right now, Doug.
Yeah,
right
what are you
now.
saying?
Right now. Listen,
man.
Again, the premier here, Doug, the $70 billion that you've spent on transit, stop bragging about that, because we can all see that did nothing. We're at we've got the worst traffic in history right now. So if you're standing up bragging about spending $70 billion, my first question is, did it solve the problem?
Nope.
And the answer is a flat out hard no, it did not. Now, maybe in the future, this could be part of the solution. He said he was a visionary and forward thinking. He also said, though, he's going to build the tunnel and they're going to get the feasibility study done. Wouldn't you decide to build the tunnel after you've seen the results of the feasibility study? To say we're going to get the study done to see if it's possible and then we're going to build it, I think that's kind of skipping a step here.
Yeah.
We need to find out if it's even possible and how much it would cost. Now, the premier also pointed out the cost on buying back the 407. It would be in the tens of billions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then a simple question. We're going to spend a lot of money today when the provincial budget comes out. Tens of billions are going to be spent on other projects. Why not make this a priority project?
Exactly.
How many tens of billions is it going to cost to build the 413, which we no longer need if we buy back the 407? There's savings that could be had here. We just got to get a deal done. He didn't write it off, but again, he avoided the question. Who did you talk to? When? How much did they say they want for it? People are getting fed up here, Anna, really fed up. I think with a lack of Trudeau in Ottawa, people are starting to focus their attention again on Queen's Park, where our healthcare system is falling apart. Our transit system is a mess. Traffic isn't moving at all. People can't get jobs. We've got plants closing, and they're wondering what the hell is our provincial government doing?
Yeah, no, and that's when his people are like, stick to the script. Okay, Mr. Visionary, stick to the script.
It's weird to call yourself a visionary, but anyway, hey, listen, that's the premier, for better or worse. I disagree with him again on both of these issues. I wish he was being more transparent, but he won't do interviews, so I can't ask him any questions.
Yep.
We'll leave it at that. Anna, yesterday, the trial of the hockey players from the World Junior Hockey Championships, that trial going on in London, we learned a few more things. I did not know that there were 10 men in that hotel room, even though only 5 of them are accused here. Some people went in just to look around and be part of the vibe and see what was going on.
Some thought there was food, that they got a message saying, hey, come into the room. There's food here. And then it was actually, from what I've read, the naked woman, EM, who came out of the bathroom that stunned everybody. They couldn't believe what they were seeing.
Yeah.
That's some of the information coming out.
I'm really curious to see what goes on in the re-examination by the Crown. They said the questioning is going to be a little discombobulated because they've got to touch on a whole bunch of different things. And I don't know what's going to come out of the re-examination that might change what we've heard so far. And the witnesses, the players who were in the room but left and didn't participate in the sexual activity, some of their testimony yesterday, I wasn't there, but it sounds believable. It sounds plausible. One of the players who testified yesterday, again, not one of the accused, just a player who was a witness, said that EM did come out of the bathroom naked. Mm-hmm. Apparently, she was touching herself and inviting men, some of the players, to participate. I also heard that the oral sex that was performed was only a few seconds. Yeah. It was like 30 seconds and then stop on 2 different men. how long it is doesn't really matter, but if she voluntarily performed oral sex on someone, I have to assume she wasn't all that uncomfortable with the situation. But that's the situation that we're in here. She said she was having an out-of-body experience and couldn't really even be there to consent.
Well, on that note,
mentally,
when she was re-examined, one of the things that she had opened up about, she said that while no one physically forced her to engage in sexual acts, she was scared and felt like she had no choice but to go along with what the men in the room wanted her to do, which is very much the opposite of one of the former players when he was testifying via Zoom, or because he doesn't live in the province, and so what we're hearing is different in terms of expectation versus what happened and versus, her being the victim in this.
Well, I'm trying to figure out how much credibility we lend to these other players because they were there. And on one hand, you've got this victim, and it sounds like what she went through was absolute hell.
Yeah.
And what she's had to live with since then has probably been hell. Then on the other side, you've got these 5 players, and the stories do not line up. I kind of feel like these more neutral parties, these other players who were a witness but not part of the actual alleged assault, I kind of give them a little more credibility because they don't really have a dog in this fight.
No, they don't.
I don't think those players owe anything to the 5 guys who are on trial. I think that they're probably most likely to be telling the truth.
Well, and that's just it. They were there, they got to see what was going on, and they decided to leave. But
smart, by the way.
Right?
Get the hell out of there. You shouldn't have been in that situation.
But then they were adding to the story about, her coming out, laying on the floor that had a blanket. And so there's a lot. I mean, and those do align with what she first said, of course, being laying down on a blanket, being naked and all that. But yeah, when she said that no one physically forced her to engage, but she just felt scared and felt like she had to. I'm not condoning anything, but at the same time, we can't read each other's minds. If you don't want to do it, you have to say you don't want to do it. And maybe she did. That's what we're trying to figure out here, even though it was recorded that she had consented. But again, when was that recorded? There's so much back and forth still trying to figure out this whole case. It's a lot. It's a lot. But yeah, we can't read each other's minds. You have to say, no, I don't want to do this.
Yesterday at the Diddy trial, we saw a much longer version of that hallway video where Diddy violently assaulted Cassie. Cassie has testified that Diddy raped her in 2018 and kept control over her life by threatening to release recordings of her with the male sex workers that were hired for the freak-offs. Cassie testified for a second day at Combs' sex trafficking and racketeering trial that Combs arranged the encounters with sex workers. I mean, that right there is trafficking. Right there. The 55-year-old Combs is accused of exploiting his status as a powerful music executive to coerce women into drugged-up sexual encounters while he watched. Meanwhile, the New York Post says Diddy allegedly threatened to blow up Kid Cudi's car. After his ex-girlfriend, Cassie, started dating Kid Cudi. The threat came true when that car actually exploded. Ventura testified that Diddy made the chilling threat in a jealous rage before the explosion occurred. She also recounted instances of abuse, including Diddy kicking her and lunging at her with a corkscrew. If convicted, Diddy does face a life sentence. Frankly, the way it's going so far, I don't think this jury is ever going to let him walk.
But he's also not he hasn't been arrested or he's not being charged with abuse, a domestic abuse or anything like that, which to me is just so weird. I don't understand. And here's concrete proof.
Right. It's actually on video.
It's on video of him physically assaulting her. I just don't understand why that's not a thing to also investigate, even though the proof is right there. It blows my mind. And then they were also asking her, why didn't you speak out and tell your mom? And she was like, I didn't because I was scared and I didn't want her to know. The less she knew, the safer she would be, because look at what happened to Kid Cudi's car. So, and she used a burner phone to try to get him to pick her up after a night of abuse, which he did. And then she broke up with him because she knew it wasn't safe to continue on with that relationship.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of a similar story. I mean, she participated because she was scared. She participated because of the fear of the unknown. She participated, and even though she didn't want to do it, she felt like she had to do it. I mean, that's similar to what EM is saying in the hockey player trial. Interesting, she noted yesterday, at times when she had a UTI.
I know.
And when she had sores in her mouth, he still made her do those things.
Yeah. Otherwise, physical
no matter
abuse,
how she was feeling.
Physical abuse. And that's what she would be afraid of because, one time he hit her so hard, she went to the hospital to see a plastic surgeon to fix her, I think it was her lip or
It was her eyebrow.
Her eyebrow, to make sure that she would look, perfect. And again, trying to pay off people so the story would never come to be. Well, here we are, aren't we?
People knew about this and they let him get away with it. People were well aware. Even in the video from the hotel, the new extended version that's been released.
Security went up.
Security was there. Hotel managers were there. Why did nobody call the police and show them that video?
I guess she didn't want to say what was going on. She didn't want to tell police because she's scared. That's the thing. People are like, why haven't you done this? If he really did this, you should. Because she's a victim. Victims are scared.
Why didn't the hotel and security call the cops? I don't understand that.
Because they're scared of his power. I'm sorry. They're scared of his power. At least the security guard went up there. And that's the only reason why she was removed from that hotel room. He went up there, stood at the door. She went and got her things, and then she was able to leave. Had he not come up, and then he tried to pay off that security guard.
No doubt there will be more from today that we will have for you right here tomorrow. Tomorrow is also Listener DM Friday. Ooh. If you want to weigh in on anything, by all means, slide into my DMs at Scott Fox On Air. I'll tell you, I got like 25 unread messages still because there's so many coming in. I'm falling behind here, but I'm going to try and get through them all today and fit as many of them as I can into tomorrow's episode. Friends, enjoy your Thursday. Screw the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Oh, no.
I'm angry and I'm acting angry.
Let's wait. I know, but still.
We'll
see what happens.
And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Oh.